Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing, one of the fastest growing real estate investing podcasts in the world. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors? Find out what got them to where they are now. Get insight into their daily habits and take these insights to inspire your own growth. Each episode, Jonathan Greene shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor and the founder of Streamline, a data-driven, investor-friendly, independent real estate brokerage located in Madison, New Jersey. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, this is the free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Welcome back to another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. My guest today is Scott Carson of We Close Notes. Now, what does that mean? They buy and sell non-performing notes from banks and hedge funds on assets across the country. They also teach you how to do it. Let's get into a note show right now. This is episode 357 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Scott Carson, aka the Note Guy. You guessed it, he's an award-winning note investor, entrepreneur, and a podcast host. Of course, he has a note show. He's the founder of WeCloseNotes.com, an Austin-based company specializing in acquiring non-performing residential and commercial notes for their own portfolio. Scott, welcome to the show.
Jonathan, honored to be here, man. Congratulations on the 350 episodes, man.
Crazy, man.
That's rarity, you know. That's less than 1% of 1% of podcasters. Congratulations! I got to bring out the old applauseometer.
Let's go.
My little screen.
Yeah, thank you. I feel good about it. Yeah, and I'm glad to get you. Well, you know how it goes. You get on a roll, and then at some point you just can't stop. I don't know about you, but for me, I just like talking about real estate. So when I got your email, I'm like, we've done a couple note shows, but I'd like to do a note show because I don't really know that much about it. And that makes it fun for me because then I can help the listeners go through that dynamic and figure out, I know why you went to notes and I know why the other people went to notes. But it's interesting in the journey because I think new investors, and of course we'll get into it, they just don't think it's accessible, but it's actually one of the most accessible asset classes out there, right?
100,000% out there. And it's actually, especially the chaos of the world, when there's more chaos, more distress in the world, there's more opportunities in our niche that we focus on the non-performing side. So a lot of opportunities, and it actually does well. And, I look back, we've built, pretty good bought over $1 billion in debt, and lots of great studies of actually making money to keep people in their houses, which is kind of a unique situation most people don't think about.
Yeah, that is, I know we'll get into that. It's really, I just think it's another thing that people don't get about it, and we'll get into it. But a lot of people who get into notes get into them after, twisting the wrench on a bunch of other things. And I know that's exactly what you did. So what was the first asset class that you started with, and why?
It would have been single family, buying my first house.
Traditional,
and then, very traditional, read Rich Dad, Poor Dads, started watching Flip This House. I mean, I grew up in a very small town in South Texas, and parents owned the local hardware store, so there wasn't too much stuff that I couldn't fix okay. And rehab stuff. And I thought, this would be kind of cool. And then after we bought our first house when I was married, the realtor's like, hey, this is a great time to buy here in Austin or Round Rock, and you've got great credit scores. And so I bought 2 more investment properties, 100% financing. And I was like, I'll be the next, lien lord or landlord here. And in a matter of about 6 months, it turned into a nightmare because I got laid off. My 2 tenants got laid off. And so me and my ex-wife now, we're trying to make 6 mortgage payments on a private school teacher salary.
Yeah.
So there's, a lot of issues, plenty of month left at the end of the paycheck, if you know what I'm talking about, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get into that situation because if, of course it's harder to acquire now, rates are higher, but if you can acquire, it seems like you should. And then once you should, it's like, well, that was easy. Let me do it again. When everything's in the best case scenario, it's awesome. Everyone's paying rent, happy, pipes never burst. There's nothing going on. But then once it comes for you, it usually doesn't stop.
Yeah, it's so true. It's very easily for that small snowball to turn into a big avalanche of issues, which is what happened. And that's what happens when you leverage everything to the hilt at the highest amount. I mean, I was 100% financing. I had no room in case of distress. And so we see a lot of that taking place in all sorts of markets. People overpaying for real estate to get into a deal, and the markets kind of correct themselves like we see happening across the country. People plan on the best thing happening in 3 years, like what's happened in a lot of the multifamily space. They were, we're going to buy it. I don't care paying 90 cents a dollar. Rents are going to go up. We're going to fix it up and then refinance out in 3 years. Well, when that exit strategy door evaporates, like a fart in the wind, you're kind of SOL.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that happen in a lot of assets. I mean, rehabbers are having a hard time finding good, profitable deals. The cost of goods have gone up. So your margins are thinner. Your costs are more expensive. Labor is hard to find. That's going to be, I was going to, here's the thing that happened just last week. We had our faucet, our kitchen sink break. And I'm a bigger guy. I can't wedge in 90-degree angles underneath. Okay.
Yeah.
So I called the plumber out. They quoted me $1,200 to replace a kitchen. Yeah, exactly. That's what I did. When he walked in after the $99 service fee, he's like, $1,200. I'm like, you can just walk your ass right back out of there. I'll figure it out.
Right.
He's like, well, it's private equity. Everything costs. I was like, yeah. I said, what will you do it off cost? He goes, I'll do it for a fraction. I'm like, okay, come in after hours. We'll do it. But it's just a lot. It's tight out there. And you got to understand, distress is happening. That's where we've always focused on after going through being our own distressed deadbeat borrowers, I like to say back in the day.
Yeah, but that's what I think is so interesting, right? When you said that and you said you're leveraged to the hilt, it's like, well, that's now who you're acquiring. Like those are the notes that you're looking for. And just like you, a lot of them, very nice people bought either too many or too high. And like me, I'm a licensed agent. I have a brokerage, and I'm always telling people, like, stop going to your top. You don't know what's going to happen. I live in New Jersey. We get high appreciation. They're probably going to be up 200 grand in a year, which is great. But if you're always going to your top, this is what puts a lot of the people that you're now helping to get back into a different loan modification, right?
100%, where they buy at the top, their budget mindset, not realistically mindset. How much house can I buy? Well, like we look at defaults right now. FHA, VAs are all at the peak. Those are your first time home buyers.
Yeah.
That are buying in. They're getting in with a very little
low
to nothing
down payment. Right. They didn't have to have enough. There are some VA and FHA who have cash and choose to use the loan as the portal, but the majority is like, it's a great option. So why? I can get a house, and you hope you have enough appreciation to weather the storm, but you don't if it's 6 months in.
Well, or you buy a brand new where your taxes aren't associated properly, so that at the beginning of the year, you get a new tax valuation, and now you're in default because you can't pay your property taxes, and taxman's got to get paid,
That's a great point, and that actually happens with turnkey a lot as well. For a novice turnkey investor, they don't know, like, you might get a bump when it comes around next year, and then it's like all of a sudden that $100 a month is negative. And that,
well, you see we've seen a lot of that, especially a lot of the DSCR loans, people wanting to get in the Airbnb side of things. They finance 80-85%, and they think they're doing well, bump in insurance costs, or it's no longer a homestead exemption. It's now a regular property. So your taxes go up, and now you're in the red, not the black anymore.
That's interesting. I didn't even think of just acquiring those type of things, but that's a perfect space for it, because I think people got into it during COVID and it was pretty easy. Everyone was booking Airbnbs, but now if you're not like an expert at hospitality, just like hit the road, bro. You can't do it. So a lot of people who had, break even or better, now they're just getting clobbered. And again, the loan portal doesn't work out the way that it used to. And there's not a good modification for them now, unless someone like you comes along and really wants to help them work through it.
Yeah, we don't usually get involved until they're probably, we buy stuff that they're 6 months or longer in default.
Yeah.
And by that time, their credit's shot. There's no real refinance opportunities for them. If they're out of work or can't afford things, they're really bent over a barrel by the existing lender. And now the lender, they're in a rock and a hard place too, because they originated the loan. They got to take a loss, but they would rather, speaking of your state, New Jersey, where it takes about 2 years to foreclose, they would rather sell that note off to somebody like me, recoup 50, 60 cents on the dollar. They can get out and leverage it, lend it, make up that 40% loss. And it incentivizes me to buy something. I know I'm going to be into it for 6 to 24 months to foreclose, but I'm buying it at 50 cents a dollar. That gives me all the room to negotiate, modify, leverage, work out with the homeowners to turn, a problem property into a profitable solution, or just have that come to Jesus, be like, hey man, you can't afford this based on where your numbers are at. If you can't afford the modification, if you can't bring something to the table, let's actually do something that's going to benefit you. Let's have you walk away from the property, sign it over, cash for keys,
save the credit, right? I mean,
we try to, we don't want them to file a foreclosure, ruins their credit for 7 years.
Right.
Late pays are 24 months. A bankruptcy will affect them for about 24 months negative. I mean, you could file bankruptcy and some people will give you a loan tomorrow. It's going to be 17% in a lot of cases.
It's not going to help you with your next bankruptcy that's coming.
No, exactly. But the thing is that when we were buying a lot of this stuff, and always are, so about 70% of the time we're actually able to keep them in their houses because we buy it at a big enough discount, and their interest rate was high that we could maybe drop it down, or maybe they've got 4 months of back payments, not a full year. So that gives us a flexibility, like, okay, you got some skin in the game. If you're going to work with us, we'll work with you to kind of turn this into a good situation again.
Yeah. Where you started this part, is interests me, because that's what I wanted to kind of get across to the listeners. Like, what part of the process do you step in? Like, you have your regular home that's starting to be distressed. Then you have what could be a potential short sale, meaning they're behind on their payments. Then you have your actual foreclosure auction. And then if that doesn't work, you have an REO. Where in the spectrum do you fall in terms of grabbing the property? If I was guessing, just for the listeners, I guess somewhere in between a short sale and the foreclosure.
Now, we'll buy. It all depends on how fast the lender is moving that loss mitigation along. In some states it's longer. Here in Texas, they can foreclose in 30 days. We do things fast here. Fast foreclosures, fast highways, fast executions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the friendliest little state in America when it comes to lending. So it varies. I'll give you an example. Like, I got a listing this morning from a hedge fund, all FHA, VA, USDA loans from a lender, 4,400 loans where they're at least 90 days behind. There's all the way up to like 2 years behind. Well, I'm not going to really look at the 90-day stuff because I'm not going to get a big discount on it. I like that 6 month where I'm going to get a bigger discount. So that's where we kind of look at as far as the default dates. And then we'll buy that note. We step into the bank's shoes, and in some cases, we'll just continue the process along. We'll offer up a short sale and all those exit strategies, but if a borrower won't play ball with us, won't respond to email or phone calls from our servicing company or our attorneys, there's not much that we can do. But I'm always willing to try to work with them, because it actually makes more sense, Jonathan, for me to keep people in their houses financially.
Yeah.
Because if they start paying in 90 days, in 12 months, that's a reperforming note.
Right.
And so if I bought it at 50 cents on the dollar and they pay on time for 12 months, plus they bring a couple months on the front end, I'm probably making about a 20% yield, cash and cash return. And then I could turn around and sell that note back to Wall Street, back to the lender as a performer at 80, 90 cents of the balance. So I'm seeing another 20, 30, 40% cash infusion and profit of working it out with the homeowner. A lot of
and
cases.
The homeowner wins because their credit stays way, way better. Of course, they'll take some hits for their non-payment, but if they can avoid the bankruptcy, like you said, avoid the foreclosure, and you can modify it and you can go with your own terms based on what values looking like or what kind of packages else you have coming in, it gives you a lot of leeway to help the homeowners that are trying to work with you more, right?
It also helps the neighborhoods. It also helps the zip codes, because a foreclosure, you and I both know foreclosure will decimate the values in a neighborhood for a good 6+ months or longer. And so that keeps it off the foreclosure radar, keeps comps up. I mean, we see stuff 6 to 12 months of most real estate investors out there anyway, because it never makes it to the foreclosure auction.
Yeah, right.
Now don't get me wrong, we'll foreclose. There's times we'll buy just to foreclose to take the asset back. Because the bar is deceased or the bar is not playing ball, and that's the strategy that we have to go because they don't want to stay, or they walked away and we can't get a hold of them.
Yeah, so I grew up with my dad buying courthouse steps foreclosures, like a lot of them. This is in the old days. I was really like under 18 when we were doing it a lot, and then we progressed.
So just like 5 years ago then, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just in the, 70s and 80s. But the interesting thing was then it was like my dad was such a nice guy. He would usually let the holdovers stay for a couple of years because the value on the real estate was very high, like compared. So he really, really try. But then like once in a while, it would be like 2 years later and we're like, we have to get you out. And at that point, you literally would just call the sheriff and they would just take their furniture and put it outside. But it was terrible. Like I watched it happen. You feel bad, but you're also like, I gave you 2 years. I own the house. What are we supposed to do at that point? What kind of conversations do you have to have with people? And is more than 50% having this come to Jesus moment? Like, look, for the listeners who don't understand, it's like at some point you have to tell someone, you're behind. I know you're behind. You know you're behind. We need to work it out. If you don't work it out, it's going to go the hard way. Those are tough conversations, and you must have to kind of develop a stomach for them over the time.
So I think me going through and facing foreclosure back in 2002 really prepared me for this.
Yeah.
Because I can actually talk with them about the fears that they're facing, the emotions. Like, I know you're hiding from the postman.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, why,
you don't want a certified letter.
1,500 letters sitting there. Don't know what's in there. Can't be a problem, right?
Exactly. Your mailbox is full of postcard letters on we can help you save your home and foreclosure and all that stuff. They don't answer the door when it knocks. They don't answer the phone. They're scared to open their mouth. So I talked to them about, like, listen, I know you're behind. And that's the great thing is when we're buying this stuff, since we're buying it at a discount, it gives us kind of that fresh start to them. Like, okay, look, I'm your new lender now.
Right.
I see you're behind. What happened? Let's tell me your country western song. Grandma got run over by a reindeer. Is that why you stopped paying?
Yeah.
Your truck broke down. Your wife left you. You're going through.
Yeah.
Big Dean, don't mean Dallas. Just having that conversation. Like, listen, I really don't want to take your house, but let's go through this. I know you're a year behind. What can you pay? And that first conversation is, they know what their payment is. Okay. They know they probably can't bring up the full amount. They also know what rent rates are in here because anybody that's facing difficulties is looking, if I got to move out, what's rent going to cost me? So I like to address those.
But also they have 5 missed payments. Like, you're not getting a rental.
Yeah, exactly. Or rent's going to be a lot more because you got to put first month, last
6 months
utilities,
down or something. Yeah.
Moving costs. You got to pull your kids out of school. So
yeah.
I address those. And now I'm not doing most of the phone calls now. It's mostly our servicing companies or attorneys, but they're all trained in the same way. Like, listen, let's just have a conversation. I'm willing to do this and this, but I need you to bring a couple months to the table. I don't care where you get the money from.
Yeah.
I need you to pay on time for a period. I know you're upside down. You owe more than the property's worth, but if you'll work with me for these next 12 months and pay on time, I'll forgive a lot of what you're behind on. I'll forgive that if you owe $400, only $300, you pay on time for 12 months, I'll drop the balance down to $300 for you.
Yeah.
Or the market value. So it's just trying to get with them and say, well, can you do this? No. Can you do this? No. Can you do this? Well, if you can't do those, then we need to go to A, selling as a short sale, B, listing a home for sale if there's a lot of equity, or C, let me give you some cash for your equity and let's get you out of here. Move into something else. We'll pay your moving costs, your deposits, that kind of stuff. Or worst case, we'll have to file a foreclosure and that's going to run you for 7 years, or, other thing is just like elderly. Do you have any equity? That's tough, but hey, let's a reverse mortgage. You got some equity.
You have the equity. I wonder if you ran into this. So I did collections for my dad as a teenager, and then into my 20s. I was kind of like the liaison. I would come home for the summer. They would always be behind. He would be like, collect the rent. If whatever you collect, you can keep half. I'm like, the best job ever. And I just figured stuff out. But what I found the most interesting thing, even over the years after my dad passed away and my sister and I took over a bunch of properties, when you tell someone, like, don't you have a relative that you can ask for money? And they say, oh, I can't do that. And I'm like, wait a second. You don't want to go into debt to your relative, but you want to get foreclosed on. And so you're in trouble 7 years, boom, your credit's shot. When you have an uncle who has money that you can just borrow 20 grand from, make me whole, then I can do the repairs on your place that you want that I can't do because you're not paying me anything. Have you come into that? I know it's an ego thing and it feels bad, but it's like there's just part of that missing where it's like, you got to ask the relative because you can get money.
So I always ask this. I said, what happens when I foreclose and the sheriff shows up? What's going to happen then? Who would you call?
Right. And then it's too late.
Then it's too late at that point. You should call them now.
Yeah, exactly. We're thinking.
And then
same.
I also asked them too, like, how, do you go to church? There's a lot of church groups out there. There's even city organizations that will have funds to help assist people that are behind. Back in after 2008, there was a whole hardest hit funds that, was put out there, billions and billions of dollars for lenders like me or servicers to modify or work with borrowers. And people just don't know about these different programs that are still available even after COVID these years later. So I'm like, let's explore some of these options, And And it's also like, I'll give you an example. A guy in New York, we bought this note. I never buy usually in New York because it takes 2 years to foreclose.
That's where I grew up, Scott. Bad move. That's the 2-year wait.
Yeah, well, yeah. You got to hire an attorney to talk to an attorney to have an attorney up there.
Exactly.
And I'm talking to a guy and his wife, and I'm like, well, can you send over your bank statements? Your bank statements, let's see if we can't squeeze. And they send it over, and they got like $500 to $600 in subscriptions to OnlyFans. I'm like, there's half your mortgage payment going to stupid shit.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And that's the thing. I mean, people don't want to cut back. Everybody has to. And I'm just like, let's figure something out. And like, sometimes it's just equity. Let's just give you money to walk.
Yeah.
And then you can go rent something for a year or two, get back on your feet, get your credit score back up and go. It's just, those come to Jesus meetings are difficult, but there's also times too, we've forgiven debt. We've like bent over backwards to help them. It's been a good thing. There's a lady in Cleveland, had 4 kids, was going to school, single mom. I bought her a note really, really cheap as a property I didn't want to own. So I just forgave her $20,000 in debt and let her keep the house because I didn't want to deal with it.
Right. But over time, that still becomes the passive income for you. If she's keeping it up, that's kind of the passive part of notes after you get them performing. It's like, okay, well, now I've got a money train. Maybe I had to eat 20, but it wasn't really the 20 of mine that I had to eat.
Exactly. I'm going to get it back because the property's worth more. They owe more on the mortgage. And the beautiful thing is the cash flow side, is the residual cash flow. Nobody calls a lender when the AC breaks. Nobody calls the lender when the toilet floods. If you're a landlord, it takes all it takes you is one phone call on a family vacation or a holiday, because they never show up at like normal times, right? It's always on the weekend. Or
why would anything break on anything but a holiday or like a graduation? I mean, that's just the landlording life. That's how it is. It's funny though, because go ahead.
I just really say that's why we call ourselves lien lords, not landlords.
Hey, it's Jonathan. I hope you're enjoying this episode with Scott Carson. And if you're interested in note investing, we've obviously gone through it. You're going to get the back half of the episode as we go through more. But if you're interested in doing what Scott does, go to weclosenotes.com. There's a virtual class. You can hook up with Scott there. Let's get back to the show. So many people have such a bad national tenor on landlords, real estate investors, note investors. I'm sure you get this all the time, but they don't realize that like the majority of all of us who've been doing it really like want to help people. I grew up with my dad letting people go 6-8 months behind. He would let them barter. He's like, what skill set do you have? Can you drive a bulldozer? They're like, yeah, I'm in construction. Come over to the house on the weekend, put in 8 hours. That's your rent. I mean, he would literally do that. And that's smart to me. I don't think people barter enough. There's always, obviously, with a note company, you can't do it that way. But for the...
No.
Oh, okay.
I've done this before.
Let's do it.
So I'll give you an example. I like Columbus, Ohio. Okay. And a few years back, we were buying a portfolio of Ohio notes. And one lady, one of our borrowers, when I Googled her, we did a little social sleuth. We saw she ran a cleaning company out of her house, right? And so I call her up, because she's got a Google thing. I said, hey, I got 5 of the properties. I need somebody to do some work in a property. Could you do that? And she's like, oh, I'd be glad to. I'll be glad to. She didn't know this was an audition for me to modify her mortgage, but it turned out that way. So she went and did the work. I paid her for the work. Okay. And then I called her up and she's like, oh, hi, Mr. Carson. Do you know the house? I said, well, let me tell you what I do. Yeah. And I think we're going to have a great conversation here. Yeah, I've paid you. You do great work. I know you're a hard worker. Let's have a little Jesus meeting here. You know? And she's like, oh, what do you mean? I told her what I did. She's like, oh my God. I said, no, it's okay. I said, tell you what, I've got another house here. If you go clean a house, I'll give you credit for 2 months of rent or 2 months of your mortgage payment. Yeah. And that'll allow you to get caught back up. I'm also going to refer you out to a couple friends. And she was on time from that point on. Yeah. But she'd fallen behind on hard times. Entrepreneurs do that. People do that. So that's the thing is it's just figuring out. Sometimes people are marketable, but then also too, you do have that occasion about 25% of borrowers out there that are just scumbags that won't do anything. I always tell the story about how we were researching this one in Orlando, and the lady's like, do I pay my mortgage or go to Disney? I'm going to Disney. I'm like, well, then you ain't going to have a house to come back to. Yeah.
But I feel like those people have just given up. It's like, they're just like quitting. There's no way, like, they're just like, I'm going to do whatever it is for myself. And like, we'll just see what happens.
That I disagree with you on that. There are folks out there that try, you give them an inch, they take a mile. we bought a note down in Cutler Bay 2 years ago. Beautiful house, $1 million house there. Borrower did everything under the earth for 4 years to delay a foreclosure.
Yeah.
COVID happened in the middle of it, so that extended things, but lied about dying of cancer, lied about not being able to speak English, lied and lied and lied.
Yeah.
Finally, we get to the date and he calls his audacity comment. Well, can I give you 40 grand rent to stay here for 6 months? I'm like, F you, buddy.
Yeah.
You're out.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to foreclosing on your ass and throwing you out.
Yeah, that's like the kind of, there's a new version of professional tenants and squatters out there who like really hack the system and then, play the victim role as if like you're doing something wrong. It's like, all right, come on. Like I still, the squatting thing, I just have no idea how the authorities are like, oh no, they have some rights. Really? How's that possible?
So, and part of this is it rolls into what we see happen. Like I don't buy in Portland, Oregon. I don't buy in Seattle because in those places you have to pay a deadbeat tenant to get the heck out of there. They have more rights than you as a lender. Chicago, if you're an out of state lien lord, the courts will side with this poor helpless tenant, even though I've been paid for 12 months. And I show up to court and I'm like, Your Honor, you've given this guy 4 opportunities. He's not followed through. Is it because I'm not a voter here and he is that you're going to delay this another 90 days? He's already, or we've kicked the guy out and he broke in 3 times. I'm just like, you have to understand that, I'm glad to help people as best I can, but some people are professional. There's always these stories about the guy who's squatting and is trying to steal the property with fake deeds and stuff like that. Yeah. That is a small minority of borrowers out there.
Yeah.
We always say that if we're going to buy, 100 notes, 50% we're going to be able to work something out pretty relatively easy. 25% is going to be some sort of like short sale, cash for keys, deed in lieu, friendly foreclosure.
Yeah.
The other 25% is just going to go the route of foreclosure.
Right.
And that will all vary on a state by state basis because every state is different when it comes to the foreclosure time frame.
But that's going back to your experience before that. That's really like what I think of when you're buying like a portfolio package of like multifamilies. Everyone's like, oh, that seems scary. It's like, it's not, it's great. Or 2 are going to shit the bed. Like, 2 are going to be the worst deals you've ever made. However, you can wholesale 6, keep 3 and rent them and then fix and flip 3. You're cashing out in all sorts of different ways. And that's the note game. That's why you need the volume eventually to be good at notes, or else it doesn't really make sense because you can buy into 4 and crap it on 3. And then you'll be like, oh, notes don't work. You need the volume of packages to help yourself, leverage against like diversifying a whole portfolio.
Well, it's just like with anything else. You have to have a game plan to do it. Notes, the most challenging aspect of notes, I would say, is knowing the different foreclosure timeframes and what's going on. But it's also, you're not going to go out and get a loan from a bank to buy a note. You've got to have the capital to do this or be good at raising private capital from other investors, IRA investors.
Right. So you have a coffer to grab some from to go in and get them.
Exactly. Or you deal with IRA investors, got money sitting on the sidelines making nothing, and you give them an 8% return to fund your deal at 50 cents, and it's a win-win across the board. And then you're just building cash flow from that point. I never tell people, I'm going to go quit my job to be a note investor from day one. That's a bad thing. Any niche out there.
I agree.
If you have an income source, $5,000, $10,000 you want to make, you can definitely do that in 12 or 24 months, depending on where you're located and what kind of assets you target.
Where does someone start if they want to invest in notes? Because I wouldn't say there's a lot of guru stuff for notes. It doesn't get as much attention as it probably should, but they're definitely out there. But if someone just wants to look around for notes, I always ask, like, how do you even start? I don't even know where to get started. I don't have the slightest clue. Like, I would just go on like note investing. Like, is that a thing? Like, how can you get started?
So there's not an MLS for notes like there is for any other property. You know what I mean? There used to be a loan MLS, but it's now some hard money lender website. So the first thing is you got to understand it's a different asset class. You're buying the paper, not the property. That's the biggest mistake people make is, since I buy this mortgage, I'm now the property owner. No, you don't. So you got to understand the difference in the bidding process. ARV does not exist in notes like it does in traditional property. Okay.
It is important though. Is it important to know the ARV versus what their upset value is, just so you know what kind of equity is in on the deal? Or
you have to know what the as is value is. Yes, you have to. We pull comps.
Future, right.
Yeah, to get to ARV is a long boat ride down the Nile in a lot of states. Therefore,
when you were saying it, the as is value, I was like, the ARV is probably never going to matter because you're not buying fix and flips. That's almost like too hopeful.
Sometimes it's working out. Sometimes so like right now, there's a lot of reverse mortgages. People have passed away. They've got a lot of equity in their houses. They've passed away. You can buy the note, 70, 80 cents of what's owed. And there's a lot of equity. But like, I'll give you an example. There's this one we're working on right now. It's just north of me here. It's worth about $325. The borrower only owed like right at $200. I could buy the note at $170. Knowing if I take it to foreclosure, I run the risk of somebody outbidding me at the auction. Okay. So we bought it at $170. I was like, okay, it's going to take 60 to 90 days in Texas. It's going to be, okay, 30 grand profit split with my investors. Not a bad day. It's an okay day. So we did that. We took it to the auction. The legal balance is like 198.5. So 198.5 gets bid. The car goes going once, going twice, sold. So it goes 199. And she goes, so sorry, sold. And I'm like, oh my God, is that the actual auction phase, Jonathan? I'm like, my honey hole tightened up a little bit. I went from making, 30 grand to now I'm tapped into, now I own the property at 300 plus. Now we'll make 100 grand versus splitting 30 grand, So sometimes that works when they're vacant or the borrower's deceased, because God love them. I would love a zombie to come back and start paying on time again, but it doesn't work that way.
Very unlikely.
So there's that opportunity for you, but you shouldn't approach it as a way to find fix and flip. It's a great strategy, but if you're in the note space, you got to understand being in the note game is all about buying that for the mortgage for that borrower to get back on track. Exit strategy for us to fix and flip is exit strategy 2 or 3. If they're occupied, living in the property, or if they're deceased, it's really exit strategy 2, but it's not the number one strategy for the most part.
Yeah. So, let's go back to where they can find them. I mean, are they going, is there like a bank list out there? Are they looking at a county list? Because it seems like someone might try to figure it out and then be like, that was too hard. I already think it's too hard to do.
That's why you got me on here,
exactly.
buddy. All right. As one known as a note guy. So yes, could you go to your foreclosure list of every county? And those are all distressed borrowers, right? But they'll tell you who the lender is.
Right.
Could you call the lenders and try to get in the back door with them? Yes, you could do that. It's going to take a lot of dialing for dollars.
Yeah.
Once a bank's already sent it to the foreclosure auction, they're usually not going to back out.
Yeah, exactly.
But I've used foreclosure lists just to get my foot in the door to the lender to get what they have nationwide.
Yeah.
We use a lot with LinkedIn by going to LinkedIn and searching for like special asset manager, secondary marketing manager.
That's good for REO real estate agents. I used to try to get REO packages, and then I realized how annoying they were. They're like, sure, we'll give you 70 tomorrow. Put all the utilities in your name. I'm like, I'm good. But like that is, someone had said that with REOs too. It's like, you really just got to be on LinkedIn. You have to make a relationship with because they get so many calls and so many random calls of people who just think they can buy it, that it's just too much.
Well, when you call the special asset manager, you talk to the main operator at the main corporate office. Never say, I'm looking for notes in REOs. They'll send you to the REO department and it's a voicemail box. But if you talk to say, I want to speak to the special asset manager, then they'll usually put you in touch with somebody. And then it's like, listen, I'm looking to buy from my own portfolio.
Yeah.
Special asset manager, secondary marketing, whole loan trader, chief credit risk officer. It all varies a little bit depending on how big the bank is. You can also go to these servicing conferences and see lenders companies that are going to that, like the Western Secondary Marketing Conference or the Mortgage Bankers Association is a great way to do it. We've always done, you can also go to like the FDIC.gov list, and see what banks are filing on a quarterly basis with their quarterly reports, and then contact those banks, say, hey, I see that you've got $5 billion in distressed debt. Can I buy something off it? And go on that route. So there are a few smaller listing websites that have stuff to look at. But we've always done a better job of using LinkedIn, contacting asset managers directly, and then you're just building a drip marketing campaign with an email blast once a month, and then they feed you what they have every month or every quarter. Yeah,
I feel like if it makes its way to some portal, it's like 10th servings. Everyone's already passed, or there's some stain on it.
There was, what's that, remember, LootNet, right? Yeah, LootNet was where commercial deals went to die, right? They weren't a deal on LootNet. Now you see auction.com and LootNet have merged. Yeah. You know what I mean? I will look at stuff that's going to auction.com, and I'll look at the address, and I'll go find out who the lender is and contact that lender and say, hey, I see you got this one going to foreclosure auction. What else do you have on your books that I can take a look at? Right. That's how I got into Capital One.
Yeah, I agree with you, though. Like, if you see a 37-unit apartment complex go up on Crexy, like, everyone in the area has passed. They're looking for that out-of-state person to come in like, oh, this seems like a good deal. I don't need to do a lot of due diligence.
Due diligence is key.
Yeah.
Due diligence is key.
Is it possible for note investing? Like if you bank at your local bank and they do a fair amount of local banks, that's not a thing, right? You need something that's bigger.
So I used to be a banker for JP Morgan Chase back in the day and then worked for Bank One. And I'd have people come in, hey, we want to buy your notes. Like the people at your local branch, unless it's like a one-off branch.
Yeah, they're not
small.
I know what you mean.
And they might be able to help you, but the small branches, small banks, they're too constrict on their lending. They're not going to be able to sell it to you at a discount.
Right. You're right.
Because it's too much of a bottom thing. The best luck that we have at Honestly Jonathan is like regional banks that are in at least 3 to 4 states with 5 branches or more. And then we start seeing more stuff like that. But here's the thing. There are about 6,000 federally chartered banks across the country. There's about 20,000 licensed lenders across the country too. So there's not just banks. There's also mortgage companies, originators, hedge funds that are doing stuff that are also have stuff available. I mean, just go to LinkedIn, type in whole loan trader. That'll give you thousands of people that are selling loans on behalf of all these institutions out there. And that's a great starting point to get a list sent to you.
Yeah. And isn't this, this is pretty much to me like one of the premier fields where you have to prove yourself. And then once you prove yourself, then you could be looking at a nice waterfall. Like if you keep being reliable for a bank, they're going to keep feeding you whatever you can get.
Yeah. Most people think when they get a listing, they got to buy the whole thing. That's really never been it was the case in the 80s.
Yeah.
During the RTC days when you were collecting rent for your dad during the summers,
Fun times.
You used to have to buy it all. But since 2008 happened, banks realized that a lot of the buyers for this distressed stuff actually falls into like I call crumbs, smaller investors out there that won't buy 50, but they can buy 1, 2 on a consistent basis. They know the numbers of the local market. They're going to give you a more competitive offer. And so you follow through. When you've closed on one, that's the thing. Just close on one.
Yeah.
And then just keep following. And be honest, if you get a listing, there's nothing on it. Like nothing on this makes sense. Because there are times I tell asset managers, like, man, you're smoking crack. I'm not going to pay that for that. You be honest with them. They like that. If they push hard, I push back and tell them to go F off. And they're like, okay, you're right. The price is crazy. We're just seeing if you knew what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah. That's why people put that stuff out on wholesale. Like they're like, I hope someone from New York comes to buy this wholesale in New Jersey.
There's a sucker born every day. And I just met him. You know what I mean?
It's funny though. With how much social media produces this FOMO for real estate investors, it's sometimes smart people who just feel like they have to now invest. Their friends are doing it. They don't know people who are really doing it. So they reach for the stars and then they get themselves in trouble. That Airbnb is a great example. Oh, this isn't hard. Okay, right. You're basically running a mini hotel now. And if you're not, you're in trouble. So it's no wonder that some of those are getting dunked on also.
Well, and most people too think about the note investing side. They think it's just pure owner finance notes. Like, oh, somebody bought in terms and somebody's selling a note.
Right.
And that is a niche in it. That's how kind of I got started a little bit. But the whole aspect of buying, residential commercial direct from a bank or lender, it does exist. It does happen. You just got to do like anything else. You just got to follow up and network and think a little bit differently. I mean, Facebook is a dumpster fire in a lot of cases out there.
Big time.
In these different groups and people, you can't buy it. You can. You just have to follow up. I mean, 80% of sales comes after the 5th contact like anything else. You have to market differently. I'm not sending out postcards and yellow letters to bankers.
Right.
I'm picking the phone up and calling or using LinkedIn to reach out to them.
The banker's like, where's the shredder? I don't give a shit about this. I get these all day. I was watching a video that you put out and I saw that you had a short sale negotiation company at one point. How much has short sales changed? I just don't see very many, if any, in my area anytime. Maybe it's just because people have such high equity in New Jersey that they kind of like average themselves out. But across the country, are there still a lot of short sale options? I'm not seeing it.
There are starting to reemerge.
Yeah.
And they've been reemerging. If you look at the states that have been hit the hardest, especially like here in Texas, Texas actually has had a boom of short sales because it was overbuilt, Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio. I'm really good friends with one of the top short sale agent down in San Antonio, Josh Boggs. And he used to do them for a variety of different realtors, Keller Williams and stuff like that. He stopped doing them for everybody else because he was so busy doing his own stuff with people being stressed. It's like we talked about. People buy a new home, taxes change, they're upside down. When you have a price correction like we've seen here in Texas of 5 to 20% markets, people lose their jobs, they're not getting overtime, they're upside down in a lot of cases. So, we've seen a boom of short sales. taking place. They're more streamlined than they were back in the day.
Yeah.
But you just got to understand the market. Banks aren't selling stuff at 50, 60 cents on the dollars. They're more at the 80, 85 cents. They're going to pull their comps.
Yeah.
They're not opposed to sometimes doing more fixes to the properties themselves. But there's still opportunity out there in the different markets. You just got to understand what's going on. And I always joke that if we get somebody that's like that, I don't mind doing a short sale because we own the paper. As long as we bought it for cheaper than what they get a listing, like, let's do a short sale. We'll take a little paper loss. Even though we're still making profit.
But have you ever seen the agents who don't know how to do a short sale and they haven't talked to the lender? So the upset value is 400 and it's on the MLS for 299. And I've already looked it up. Someone's like, oh, it's a deal of the century. I'm like, that's the agent's price. That's not the bank's price. Like we're not even in the ballpark yet.
Third party approval required.
Exactly.
That's the biggest thing you got to see on a short sale. Bank required, bank approval required on that.
But if you're smart, I know they want the contract to say, but you know what the upset value is. So you can really when I was in handling either modified short sales or foreclosure, I had the numbers locked up. I said, what can I list at? So if we get it, we can sell. And then I just say that's the price. It just makes everyone's life easier. You don't want to you're tempting people. I think agents use it to get leads and stuff, and then they're like, but that just wastes everybody's time thinking that you can get it and you can't.
Well, and that's the thing too, is we always say, if we're working with a client who is an agent, okay, what's your agent going to list it for? Oh, full value. No, they need to list it 80 cents in the dollar. And we need to talk. I'm the lender, so listed at 80 cents in the dollar. That's why I'm telling you to list it at.
Right.
So you get activity.
Work with the lender.
Exactly. People will bid it up to maybe 90, then it's only a 10% haircut. The other way is listed at full value. Nobody sees it because they see third-party approval required. Oh, it's a short sale. It's going to take 6 months. I don't want to wait around 6 months. If you give 20% discount, I might wait around a little bit for that.
Yeah. But if third-party approval is required, don't you want to consult the third party before you throw it up?
You should.
I mean, work together.
You should, but not every realtor investor is created equal, Jonathan. You know what I mean?
Not the brightest
In
bulb.
Texas, we say bless their heart. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I understand. Is there an asset class that you've played around with in your career that you just hate and would tell new investors, just don't do it?
Don't buy in Chicago. It's just, when it comes to, you always know what you're buying. That's the biggest thing. Understand what you're buying, and honestly, steak and potatoes. Single family, stick in the same class. Don't get into heavy rehabs. Lipstick,
I agree with that.
paint carpet. That's a simple thing. If you're in one, and a great thing, I buy in about 20 different states. Okay. So you got to be careful when you're out there is relying on good realtors. Always put eyes on an asset. Know your numbers. If you're, oh, this is a great deal. I'm buying. Why is it so cheap? Where is it located? Oh, it's rural, small town. Avoid it unless you live there and know somebody there.
Right.
Stick to the bigger markets. Stick to the faster foreclosure states or the semi-faster judicial foreclosure states. It's not a bad thing. Occupied assets are better than vacant because somebody's at least living in, keeping the power on. The AC hasn't been stripped and sold off like a vacant property. Those are all things you got to learn.
No copper left in there.
Yeah, exactly. We know how expensive copper's getting these days. It's just it's a learning process. That's why we started teaching classes on this stuff 15 years ago. It's just to show people, hey, this is different. This is what you get to think differently. You got to put your banker's hat on versus your fix and flip hat on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So when people come to you to learn about notes, why are they coming to you? Are they looking for passive income, or are they're interested in real estate and failed at other things, or yes?
All of the above.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? We've had, they want to get into real estate, but they don't want to deal with fix and flips and toilets and tenants. So they don't want to do that. They like something a little bit more passive. They work too much, so they want a good return. So performing notes might work in their favor, where they can make an 8 to 12% buying a performing note. Maybe they've been bitten by the distress bug in an asset class. We get a lot of multifamily investors coming in the note space because they lost money on all these apartment syndications that went belly up with Brandon Turner. You know what I mean? Out there, So they realize that 50 grand, I can buy a note that's going to pay me a good yield on this stuff. And I've got equity on the high side. Or 100 grand, I don't need to have millions of dollars to do this. There's just, you guys just know where to look and how to evaluate that stuff. So that's part of it. It's passive, it's active. We started teaching for that reason alone, we had to teach why it was different than a fix and flip or a property. It also helps us raise capital for our own deals because we're listen, here's a deal. we'll partner with people on all the time. Hey, you fund the deal. We'll do all the heavy work and give you a great return for your time.
Yeah. So I don't know if you'll get the corollary, but maybe you will. A lot of times in my head, because of all those shows I've done, I liken note investing a little bit to land flipping, because you can get in for a very low amount comparatively. And if you pay attention to how someone good teaches you how to do it, you can literally do it all day. It becomes like once you know the process and you get good at it, it's just rinse and repeat. Am I right about that?
I would say it's definitely on the rinse and repeat side. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's different things on land and values and appreciation versus being a debt.
Yeah, I didn't mean
one thing that you
system-wise,
yes,
ability
system-wise
to get into it, and volume. Like volume's the key, but you need the volume after you know the system. Then the volume becomes easier.
Well, learn the system and then embrace the marketing side. That's one thing I think that stands out from what we've done for 20 years. It's just the marketing side of leveraging our podcast, the Note Closer Show, leveraging YouTube, sharing details. Like Monday night, I broke down a tape of 54 non-performing notes that a hedge fund sent to us. A couple weeks ago, it was 110. Where's the deals? Where's the duds? And just be coachable and understand, start small, pick 3 to 5 states, stay in the bigger markets. And, it's not going to be a grand slam, but hit a base. I had a guy today, he's buying a note in San Antonio. The house is worth $240,000. Okay. It's owner occupied. They only owe like 20 grand left on the note. Okay.
Yeah.
The lender's selling, just get off. He's going to pick up for like 8 to 10 grand. He's going to make about a 12% return with his money. He's happier than a pig in slop because he's going to learn the process. It's going to have a servicer to help it.
Yeah.
If the borrower doesn't pay, guess what? He's going to foreclose on this property and make a ton of money or get paid off in full. And he lives in Georgia. It's not in his backyard. It's here in San Antonio or in San Antonio. I'm in Austin, but that's the great thing. You can do this across the country. There's property managers, servicers, we call those, or attorneys that will do the heavy lifting for you. So that's the great thing. There are plenty of smaller deals out there. Now, a lot of folks I get a lot of phone calls about people buying like second or junior liens. I would not invest in a junior lien. That's
it's
a very risky
complicated. There's no reason to do it unless you're a pro.
You're not in the driver's seat. The lender's still in the driver's seat, or the first lien is in the driver's seat. So just go be in the first lien. It's easier to raise capital when you're in a first lien position, and you're going to get a bigger yield, bigger paycheck for sure.
Yeah. And so at WeCloseNotes.com, what do you do and how can you help other investors? Because I know that's part of your buying company, but I know that you've helped a lot of investors over the years try to figure out how to do it as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's our mothership. You can find out, listen to our podcast, the Note Closer Show, check out our number 1 YouTube channel, number 1 podcast. We have deals available all the time that we're marketing, lists that we're buying for ourselves, looking for passive investors or people that are more active that want to get into the game. They can sign up for a workshop. We have a 2-day or 3-day workshop every quarter. We've got a free 2.5-hour class. If somebody wants to, then go to Note Weekend and watch that 2.5-hour class, get their feet wet, see if it's a good fit for them. If not a big deal. You're going to walk away smarter.
Yeah. And
then sign up for a couple $100 to take a 2-day workshop where you get the replays, 200-page manual, real deals. We always focus on the 4 Fs: find, fund, flip, and flow. Not flow, the insurance lady, but flow, cash flow, baby.
Yeah, she's cash flowing on all those residuals, so I can tell you that for sure.
But here's the thing. Everybody's already in the note business. If you got a mortgage, a car payment, credit card, you owe Bubba down the street or Guido if you're in New Jersey now, you are on the wrong side of the payment stream. You have money going out. Let's show you how to be on the right side and get the money flowing into you. I always say it's the sexy side of real estate because you can do this in your shorts or your shirt at home and not have to be out banging on doors and scraping paint.
That's what I was thinking. But I think a subset of the new investors who are watching what people are doing and wanting to replicate that, you're just not going to see flashy videos on notes. Like you're going to see a house flip, but hey, welcome to house flipping when you try your first one and you don't know what you're doing when 3 contractors run away and then you get a red card and now it's 7 months and you're not even a quarter done and now you got to sell the shell. I mean,
or you over rehab the property for you to move into the property versus it being a rental.
Well, you have to move in because no one else wants it at your price.
I've been down that road before, But here's the thing. I mean, I always joke about those, those fictional TV shows, Flip This House or the Zombie, Zombie Home, stuff like that. Yeah. Look, those guys are professional teams. If you're start off with one thing, learn from it. Get you a coach, join your local RIA club, talk with people who are actually closing deals in today's market, not somebody who closed deals 5, 10, 15 years ago. There's a completely different market these days.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome, man. I really appreciate it. So best place for people to get in touch with you is at weclosenotes.com, and they can definitely find you on LinkedIn. I know you're active on LinkedIn.
I'm all over the place. If you Google Scott Carson real estate, or you can always go to talkwithscottcarson.com, then I'll book you right into my calendar.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate it. It's good to have a note show back. And I really like the arc of your story, because to be vulnerable and say like, yeah, I got myself in trouble. That's what really gave me the empathy to be able to deal with notes. I think that can help a lot of people see kind of the bright side and what's going on with that and how they can somehow turn it around later.
Well, that's not the only thing. You got to realize too, it's good to have a heart, but I see one of the biggest mistakes I see investors making too, Jonathan, is they don't want to foreclose. They want to give borrowers an opportunity, and then they're the ones that are in distress because they're not paying their investors.
Yeah.
I mean, COVID, you couldn't foreclose on anybody for 18 months. That was a tough time. I'm not going to lie about that. That was tough.
Yeah.
But it's like with any asset class, there's peaks, there's valleys, there's pros, cons. Just learn it and be coachable and take some action. But the most important thing you can do for you guys listening or watching this is make sure you go and leave Jonathan a 5-star review and subscribe,
From
because
a podcast
he's
host.
kicking ass. 350 plus episodes. Yeah, baby. That's a lot of good knowledge on that stuff.
Yeah, man. Well, I really appreciate it. It's been a fun show, and it's good to meet you and talk to you. I'm sure
Yes,
we'll
sir.
talk soon.
Same here, John. Thanks so much for having me on, man.
Absolutely. That was Scott Carson. You can find him at weclosenotes.com. I'm Jonathan Greene. We'll see you next episode. Thanks for sticking around to the end so you can get a preview of who's coming up on episode 358 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And it's a return guest, Whitney Elkins Hutton. And that means passive investing, because Whitney works for passiveinvesting.com. We go all through how she did it, her ideas for 2026, asset classes, and everything else next episode. We'll see you there.